This is a little bit of a new thing, but I'm very excited about it. It is our first ever certified badass list. In mixed martial arts, there's such a thing known as the BMF belt. There is a pound for pound top fighter ranking, and I thought we would develop right here on these fun little videos my own very, very, very cool, awesome, extremely influential and powerful certified badass list. The top 5 pro drivers, round for round, instead of pound for pound, you get that? Little play on words. Round for round, top 5 pro drag racers in the sport. So here we go, the current CBA breakdown. I'm not gonna really do this in any sort of order. These are the top 5 drivers that I believe exist in professional drag racing right now. So I'm looking around, I'm painting a wide swath here, as wide as we possibly can, and this will be an ever-changing thing. I don't know how often I'm gonna update it. Maybe every week. Maybe monthly, maybe after a major race. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I just wanted to get this out there and talk about some of the guys and gals that I think are really crushing it in the sport of drag racing. And so why waste any time? We'll dive right in. First and foremost, Stevie Fast Jackson. I think you are absolutely insane if you don't see him as one of the hottest drivers in drag racing right now, based on his dominance in the radial racing ranks. And really, his performance at the US Nationals. I didn't want everybody on this list just to be someone who recently won, just to be someone that won at the NHRA US Nationals, for instance. But Stevie's performance, let's at least identify what he did at the Shakedown Nationals, Virginia Motorsports Park last weekend. Resets, sets the record in radial versus the world, goes 350 with a 5 at 213 and 213.67, 213 and change, crushes the competition, absolutely crushes the competition, wins in decided fashion. And that's not even mentioning what happened at the US Nationals. And I want to touch on that a little bit, and I've got some notes that I want to talk about really his reaction time and his performance as a driver. If you look at the first round, breaking down these lights on race day, triple O, perfect reaction time in the opening round of racing against Clint Satterfield. Now, I do think that there may be an argument that this was a bad performance, right? Because why would you go out and cut that kind of light in the first round of qualifying? But I really think that it points to the level of competition that exists in Pro Modified right now, in the E3 Sparkplugs NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series. You can't take any of these guys lightly. If you qualify in NHRA Pro Mod, you probably are capable of winning the race. And I think that's why Stevie knew that he couldn't take Clint Satterfield lightly in that first round and went up there and strapped a triple zip on him. He had to do it. He knew, obviously, I know that maybe in hindsight he would say, ooh, I came awfully close to red lighting, right? There are people that may say that was a bad job red lighting. That should have been a 008 red, whatever. What I see in it, however, is a driver that knew that Clint Satterfield's getting a little bit of momentum. That Clint Satterfield, Bob Gardner, that two-man team, their new ProCharger powered Camaro, they're starting to find the rhythm. They're making some really good runs. And I don't think Stevie Fast Jackson wanted to find himself in a situation where he'd lost on a hole shot to a guy that he was taking lightly. So he goes out there in the first round of eliminations, goes 000, comes back in the second round against his teammate, Khaled Al-Balushi, goes 038, scores the win in what I think may have been one of the races of the weekend. The third round of elimination goes up against Alanabi Performance's Brandon Snyder in that blue Corvette, which is really, really coming on strong right now. Goes 016 to Brandon Snyder's, I think, 017 or 019. Goes 575 with a 3 or something to Brandon's 575 with a 6. It was an extremely great drag race, but Stevie stepped up, knew he had to be killer, knew he had to be better than someone in the category that is known as a good lever, who is also making really, really good runs right now. Then he let it all hang out in the final round with a 009 against someone I know he considers as a friend and a hero, a legend in the Pro Mod drag racing ranks, Todd Tutterow. King Tut, Mr. 200 mile per hour in the 8th mile. The dude, just a really, really, really incredible performance. And I think when you pair winning at Indy, winning the US Nationals, winning the Shakedown Nationals, winning every radial race of relevance since last March, winning the 2019 NHRA Pro Mod Drag Racing Series Championship, doing so in dominant fashion, having set the Pro Mod record several times in that time span. I don't think you can find a driver that's doing a better job right now than Stevie Fast Jackson. Second up, Erica Enders. Again, I don't want this list to be entirely comprised of people that won at Indy, but I also don't want to make light of winning on the biggest stage that exists in drag racing, and Erica just got that job done. I look at the storylines, I guess, the redemption going into the final round at the US Nationals, knowing this is a race that she should have won last year, going in and being willing to pull herself together and do what is needed behind the wheel of that Chevy Camaro and NHRA Pro Stock to get the job done. I was really impressed with her performance, and I think it's funny because if you look early, it wasn't a matter of her being dead on all day. And I think this is when great drivers really show up, because you may get one, you may get a couple that go your way. I mean, if you look early in the weekend, first round of eliminations, Erica is a couple cars back behind her teammate, Jed Coughlin Jr. She sees him go red right in front of her. Very hard, no matter how good you are, to get that out of your head. I would argue virtually impossible to not have that enter your head, especially if you know anything about their driving styles and that they drive fairly similar, stage fairly similar, do a lot of things alike. Why wouldn't you? Jed Coughlin Jr., one of the all-time greats. And I'm sure that got into her head. She goes out there, I think went 080 in the first round of eliminations, and obviously good enough to win, made a good run, which is very important. They've got the power to back that up, to solve that problem when it's there. But what I really noticed was how she kept pushing. She kept going back to the pits. They work on the car, they talk, they strategize how to get better. And when it mattered, she goes up there in the final round against a killer in Matt Hartford, a rival by all accounts. This is a guy that was one of her quote unquote teammates, right? He wasn't necessarily a direct teammate, but he was a engine teammate under the Elite Motorsports Elite Performance umbrella in 2019. He leaves and goes to KB Racing for 2020 and is performing very well, notoriously good lever, goes out there and straps a 009 on him, or excuse me, a 009, runs a 660, takes home the win, scores redemption over last year, comes into the year as a reigning champion, and in my opinion is well on her way to her 4th world championship in NHRA Pro Stock, and what I believe will cement her as the greatest female race car driver of all time. And I just find it interesting because the story, she's one of the drivers on this list that's going to get a good amount of carryover from the past, just because it would seem to me that when it is all on her, when they need her as a team to be the difference maker, she does it every single time. And it's such a rare skill, it's such rarefied air in any drag racing. I mean, to be able to dial it in, to take it to another level on demand like that, very, very, very special. Again, I think she's gonna go down as one of the greatest race car drivers of all time, one of the greatest drag racers of all time, but she's definitely the greatest female race car driver of all time. This is my last one, I promise, that is fresh off a win at Indy, but I look at Sean Langdon right now. I found that win at Indy to be very telling for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, Sean is a former Top Fuel world champion. He's not leading the points, he's in the hunt, and I think this may have been a breakthrough win for him here in 2020, where that you get over the hump and things start to roll downhill a little bit. And I want to look at these reaction times, because I think if you take a snapshot, you see a guy that was racing really intelligently. You look at the first round, goes 053 in the first round of eliminations against Joey Haas. And I think these first round matchups, I've seen it time and time again, you guys, where somebody goes out there and they know they've got a guy covered. And we're humans, right? We're humans. So this happens, and I'm trying to pile on to anybody who's experienced this, but you go up there for that first round of eliminations, you're qualified top 5, top 4, what have you. You're in the top half of the field. So there is a thing that happens where it enters your mind, and it's hard not to at least tick the box of, we've got this guy covered performance-wise, right? Now there's oddities here and there where somebody qualified poorly, struggled, or was testing in qualifying. There wasn't enough cars for it to really matter. Lane choice wasn't super significant, so they were testing stuff or whatever. But in this particular first round, I found it interesting because Joey Haas, Sean Langdon's opponent in the first round of action, this was a guy that was making his Top Fuel debut, lots of energy, right? Full of momentum, not momentum, bad word, not adequate here. Full of that vigor and energy that comes from being new, right? We've all experienced. First time out, you're freaking pumped up, you're amped up, and anybody who you race against is getting your best ever effort. The best job Joey Haas has ever done driving a Top Fuel car probably came in that first round of eliminations against Sean Langdon. You've got to know that as a driver. You have to know that. You have to know that you're going up against a guy that's out to prove something. He's not a former champion. He's out here to make a mark, make history, upset the apple cart, change the game, right? I thought it was very impressive that Sean went up there and cut an 0.53 light against Joey Haas, scores the win. Goes up in E2, goes 0.69. I think if there was a round that he kind of left up to the racing gods, it was probably that second round against Corey McClenathan. However, DSR car, very capable driver, very capable car, very capable program. He may have left that one up to the racing gods, but 0.69, nothing to sneeze at. Maybe not what we're starting to see more of. These cars we're seeing a lot better reaction times in Top Fuel racing here lately. But Sean knew he was there. An 0.69 is not out of the game, right? That's not a horrible light or anything like that. Scores the W in round 2. Here's where it gets interesting for me in rounds 3 and 4. Goes up against Justin Ashley, who is absolutely unconscious on the starting line right now. You can't not know that. You can't not know that the guy is going 0-0 in a Top Fuel dragster, right? He goes up there and again, and I will say, Justin Ashley has been so good on the starting line, in fact, that I'm reserving judgment. I'm waiting to throw him on a list such as this until I see that to pass the test of time. I want to see some consistency. I want to see that happen throughout maybe the remainder of the year, maybe a couple more races, and maybe I'm talking about Justin Ashley on this list. He scored a win here in Indy, rookie season. I think he's really making a mark on the sport of drag racing. But Sean Langdon, again, goes up against Justin Ashley, goes 0.39. And what that says to me is a conscious step up. A conscious decision to ratchet it up and know that he couldn't give this race away on the starting line. Very good racing. Then he goes out and wins the race with his right foot, whacking that throttle, pedal fest, which I think we all love to see, and the veteran gets the win over the fresh-faced, very excited, full of piss and vinegar rookie in Justin Ashley. In the final round, goes 0.15 against Leah Pritchett, I think an honest-to-goodness rival of Sean Langdon, part of the DSR camp, going up Coletta Motorsports, which obviously Sean Langdon drives for. An absolute fantastic performance for Sean Langdon at the U.S. Nationals, and this is something that I see continuing. I don't think you can give teams like that, guys like that, you can't let them start to stack them up. You just really can't. You can't let them get a lot of chips, right? You got to make them play lean and mean and play from behind. So right now, I think those guys are in great shape. So Sean Langdon would be number 3 on the CBA list, certified badass list. Number 4, Johnny Placino. Big switch of gears here. He is a guy who has won recently at Indy, not the U.S. Nationals, the Indy makeup, COVID race, what have you, where they brought in the Mountain Motor Pro Stock cars. But I looked to the PDRA national event in Virginia about a month ago where Johnny really he's had a tremendous success in 2020, making his full-time debut in Mountain Motor Pro Stock, the PDRA Extreme Pro Stock division, Mountain Motor Pro Stock and the NHRA, part of their exhibition program for 2020. And I see a team that's doing something special. Johnny inherently has some swagger that I think is valuable and dangerous for a driver. Guys, dangerous in a good way, dangerous for the competition. This guy has belief. He has so much self-confidence, so much self-belief that I think if you are able to pair that kind of belief with legit top-tier performance like they've been doing, you've got a recipe for trouble. You're fitting to crush some fools. And that is exactly what they've been doing here in 2020. Going back to Virginia, they set, go number one, qualify number one, win the race on a hole shot. But what I notice personally from Johnny Placino and camp, a couple things. First, they make great runs. It is never unusual to see them go low of the session, make low ET of the round. These guys make great runs. They're racers to the nth degree. Gear ratio changes after every run. They are leave RPM. I mean, they are just constantly tweaking that thing, constantly manipulating that hot rod, and the proof is in the pudding, man. They are killing it out here. And I also noticed this is a team that has chemistry, right? Johnny Placino racing with his dad, John, the whole team. It's the usual suspects when you walk by that Strutmasters pit area, because these guys have been racing together for a long time. And some of these newer teams or teams that are coming back or don't race a lot, they're always kind of rotating in a guy or bringing in a guy. Not that that's bad. Success can be had in that environment. But when you get guys around your race team that are never going to be fumbling around on the starting line or can't find a Zeus tool or don't know where something is in the trailer, they know what drawer the turn breakover bar, they know where everything's at in the toolbox, right? They know you've got an extra starter in that third cabinet, right? And they know that like 4 rows down in the listed cabinet, there's a permanent marker. That stuff's important. I know it sounds silly here and now, but that chemistry, that kind of harmony in the pits can change everything. And the Placinos have it in spades. That's a group that races very well together. They're gonna be a problem. They're gonna win a lot. They're not done. They're gonna win a lot more in 2020. I think Johnny Placino is one of our sport's true up and coming superstars. And again, going back to those runs they make great runs when they don't have to. And there's a couple of different strategies on race day. Obviously, you're out here to win. Everybody's going to tell you, we just want to win the next round. But there are racers, there are race crew chiefs, there are car chiefs, there are people involved in this sport that they run each round as it needs to be run. And you're going to hear drivers say, I'm running my own race, blah, blah. Those are the fun things to say in interviews. It plays well on camera. It plays well to the untrained eye. But don't think for a second that a lot of these race teams don't go to the starting line well knowing what that team in the other lane's capable of, what they've been running, whether or not that driver just went through a brutal divorce. They know all these things. They've got to know them. Why wouldn't you know them? You have to have your ear to the ground. You have to be paying attention. You have to be observative. You have to be. And Johnny Placino and company, what they do that I find is interesting, that kind of smacks the other way, kind of heads the other way, is they go up there and make the best possible run every single time. If we were able to know what is possible, if we know that it is possible based on the air, track temp, density, altitude, etc., barometer, that somebody can go 4:08. That's the best possible run that anybody can make. Whether they've got JR Carr in the other lane or a bone stock Buick, they're gonna try to run a 4:08, and they'll probably get pretty close. They'll run an 08 with a 5 or an 08 with a 4. These guys are making killer runs, tons of harmony, tons of energy, and I just think that they've got the momentum that's gonna ruin it for everybody for the remainder of 2021. The 5th and final spot, and again, these are in no certain order, these are just the 5 baddest dudes I think exist in professional drag racing right now. I'm gonna round out the list with PDRA Pro Nitrous superstar Jim Halsey. And I'm gonna point right to the Shakedown Nationals recently completed at Virginia Motorsports Park. Tyler Cross knows pride and joy. Jim Halsey goes out there and uncorks a 360 with a 5. And I know it's not like me to get overtly obsessed about the scoreboards. You guys know how I am. You know that I'm a guy that likes to see racers stack up W's. But what I see in Jim Halsey and company, Eric Davis, Kathy, that whole crew, is that Brandon Schweitzer, everybody involved with that program, is I can sense the chip on their shoulder. I can feel it. I feel that 360 with a 5, that record-setting nitrous run at Virginia, and I really can't say enough about that performance. Let's just talk about that for a moment. I think back to when we were first starting Drag Illustrated magazine many, many moons ago, almost 15 years ago, and it was the shot heard round the world when at Valdosta, Georgia, South Georgia Motorsports Park, Shannon Jenkins uncorks the shot heard round the world 3.99 second run with a nitrous door slammer in the 8th mile, that very famous, very familiar white and blue 68 Camaro built by Tim McCamus with a Gene Fulton power plant between the frame rails. Breaks the internet. Well, this was kind of before the internet broke. It might have got some post on a forum somewhere, but he went 399, and it was as if no one was ever gonna top this feat. What happens now? Is anybody ever going to be willing to run their stuff hard enough? Because there's sparks coming out of this thing. It hurt a cylinder head. I mean, they had to work on it. They had to work on it to run like that. Here we are in the fall of 2020, and Jim Halsey's clicking off a seemingly effortless 3.60 second 8th mile elapsed time, nearly 210 mile per hour pass in a nitrous assisted door slammer. It's insane. And what I'll tell you about this is I think Jim has everybody else pressing. I'm seeing people try stuff. You've got new shock and suspension programs showing up in nitrous door slammer racing. You've got some fresh faces. You've got phone calls happening in the background. You've got guys trying new engines, trying new programs, testing this, testing that. You've got guys burning up the 8th miles all over the East Coast, trying to test day and night to bridge the gap. And you can't let a racer like Jim Halsey get ahead of you. He's like a basketball team, I think, that plays best from ahead. Now, don't get me wrong. They're happy to dig out of a hole. Those guys hadn't raced for several years, had kind of parked their program, done other things, tended to business. They returned to action in the PDRA Pro Nitrous at a time when the class couldn't possibly be more competitive. There couldn't be more badasses than exist in PDRA Pro Nitrous right now, and you have Jim Halsey make the conscious decision that these are the guys I want to race with. This is the time that I want to come back when it couldn't be harder. I want to come back and prove a point and be a part of something special, and that's what they have right now with their record-setting Pro Mod program. And I don't think these other competitors, I see plenty of people, and I can name several: Lizzie Musey, Tommy Franklin, Chris Reaney, Jay Cox. I think Jay Cox, I'm sleeping on him a little bit right now. That's a bad dude. But for the sake of this conversation, I think you put one of Pro Mod drag racing's all-time drivers, Jim Halsey, in a car that has a little bit of an edge right now, and they will work day and night. They will wear out that Cecil County dragway up there in Maryland where Jim lives. They will wear that place out to extend that gap, to widen the gap. And if you look, consider the environment, consider the stage. Jim Halsey tows down to Virginia Motorsports Park and sets the record. I mean, this is like winning the Super Bowl on your biggest rival's home field. Tommy Franklin runs at Virginia Motorsports Park, maybe not as much as rumored that he does, but tests there routinely. For Jim Halsey to come down there and make that kind of run, obviously the stars and moon aligned, the weather was great, the conditions were great, but I really look at Jim Halsey and that team as some guys that have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove, and they are not going to rest until they win a world championship. So that is the first ever certified badass list, the round for round top 5 best drivers in professional drag racing right now.